Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midweek program at the Raulston Arboretum. My name is Blake, and I'm the education assistant here at the Arboretum, and today we are in the Asian Valley because that thing right there, obviously, it's a beautiful shot. It's a beautiful fall day. We got a program for you today all about fall garden cleanup. We went through the garden last week with Tim Alderton, our research technician, and filmed some things you might want to think about in your garden at this time of year to help make sure not just that things are looking nice, but you're thinking about the way your garden impacts the world around us. So these are important things to think about at this time of year, so it should be a truly wonderful program. Those of you watching this on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, and feel free to leave a comment down below. And with the announcements out of the way, I will get things started with our segment about autumn garden cleanup.
With the arrival of the first frost here in Raleigh, things are starting to change a little. We're starting to think about what we need to do to prepare for winter and do some fall cleanup here in the garden. We need to think about what you want to do, what you don't want to necessarily do, and some reasons for why you're doing things and why you're not doing some things is what I want to touch on. We will also dabble in a little bit of things like we might want to divide something at this time of the year or plant some things, and that's great things to touch on. So one of the first things we're going to look at here is this Amsonia, which everyone thinks they plant their Amsonia for its beautiful fall color. Doesn't always work out for us. We have an issue here in the garden. It looks terrible. We have a problem here that we get a caterpillar on them in the garden. This is one reason you might actually want to do some cleanup before you would typically maybe want to do this. This is to remove an insect pest that has been plaguing us. It's a moth that is affecting us here in the garden, and it's been increasing here in the garden for the last like 4 or 5 years. And so to help with that, alleviate some of that issue, I really do need to do a cutback to this a little earlier than one would normally do. So the culprit is a moth, like I said, or a caterpillar, and it's the orange-shouldered sherbet moth. Apparently it's not that common, but it has become uncommonly common here in the garden. So I'm just going to take and trim back all the stalks on my Amsonias here, and we'll discard all this. We will not put this on the compost pile. We will put this in the garbage if possible. You could compost it in place if you really wanted to, if it were something that did not have an issue. There's reasons to get rid of some of your plant debris versus keeping it at home and composting it. And in this case, again, we have a moth issue here. We're trying to alleviate some of the pressure. If I can just get it to a happy medium and have a few moths, I'm okay with that, but I don't want to have a number that I've had this past year. So I'm going to cut these back hard the whole way to the ground, and you can discard all this material. Others might not want to do this, especially if you're doing a native garden. A lot of beneficial insects, especially our native wasps and bees, often live in the stems of to overwinter. And so they kind of discourage us from doing a cutback at times. But if you have the opportunity and you want to, you can leave these up for up to 2 years. I don't do that. We try to leave our stalks of a lot of our stuff up until spring, if we can, late winter, early spring, and then we do a cutback after the temperatures have warmed up. But there are reasons to get rid of things just aesthetically, and your own gardens, you may, if want it to look a little more formal, and in that case you do still need to do that regardless of you having an insect issue or not. But if you're willing and don't mind, you can leave up the stalks all winter. You may also do things strategically to highlight something that's behind it or in that same area. So if I wanted to, I could plant bulbs at the base of this, and you might want to cut things back so that later on, as they're emerging, you can see those. So those are a couple of the reasons that you may or may not want to do a pruning back of some of your plants in your garden at this time of the year. Definitely, if you have an insect issue, it is really good to do that. You also have diseases can sometimes overwinter, but if you don't have any of those issues with a particular plant, feel free, you can leave them right in place. Grasses have been used so much more in our landscapes today, and this is one here. This is a muley grass, and it's a fall flowering grass, but will look great throughout most of the winter if we leave it up. So this is one that I truly hate to cut back until I have to. Aside from the fact that it does look nice, it's also acting as a home for some of those insects that we were saying that might overwinter in here. Those native bees and stuff will use the culms of the grass as a winter resting place, you might say. And so I tend to wait to cut these back until the end of February, early March, when we start to warm up here in this area into the 50s and 60s consistently during the day. And so that gives them an opportunity to find a new home after that, or come out of their winter quarters before we do too much to them. A lot of the other grasses you can do the same with too. So you may have panicums, or that is the switch grasses in your yard, which are very common. You may also have cordillerias, which are the pampas grasses. And those are the pampas grass is actually evergreen, and if you cut it back now, it won't do too much till spring. So you're looking at a sheared off buzz cut of a clump if you do too much to it now. So long as it's not in your way, I would leave that one go as well. Though winter is also an excellent time to cut it back because you can wear more clothing, is the other way I look at for pampas grass, as it will cut you. So unless those grasses look really ugly, I would leave them up because you're gonna get some winter interest out of them. They're the homes for overwintering beneficial insects, and it's just a nice texture to have around. Appreciate them for what they look like through the seasons whenever we don't have as much in our gardens to appreciate. Another kind of pruning that often gets done in the fall but maybe should wait is pruning your trees and shrubs. A lot of them have actually not shut down yet, and that includes a lot of our conifers. If you wait until the 1st of December, a lot of this will have shut down in our area, and it'll be safe to prune them without them starting to think, oh, I should start to resprout and grow again, which will sometimes be induced by that pruning. It says, make me grow, I'm gonna grow now. So what I like to do with some of my conifers is you can take note now what you might need to do, and in a few weeks, you know, when after Thanksgiving, we're starting to think about decorating for Christmas. The pruning of your conifers that's a perfect time. Also, if you want to take cuttings of them, it's another perfect time after it gets cold and stays fairly cold. So you can take note. Don't prune them now, but just take note what you want to do with them. And you can use these as decorations, you know, in a planter outside your steps. You can make a wreath, which is what we do here at the Arboretum, and we have a wreath workshop. But the conifers are great for that. Other things I see, and it drives me crazy every fall, is people who have camellias here in Raleigh. They have a tree service come and they shear them in October or November as or just before they're going to flower. You may ask why we don't want to prune your camellias in particular at this time of the year, but there's some others you might not want to do that. Azaleas, hydrangeas, they've all set their buds for next year. So if you're pruning them now, you're cutting off all those flower buds. Camellias set their buds in mid to late summer, and as they're maturing right now, if they're not opening already, it's a terrible time to cut them off. And you can wait, like I said, a few more months on those. The hydrangeas, it depends on which kinds, of course, but the macrophyllus in particular, they also set their buds late in the season. If you prune at this time of the year, you're gonna nix a lot of your flowers for next year. Wait again until spring, see what if there's any dead in them, which you can do anytime, actually. The shoots that don't have any buds, you can prune that out. But wait and see what flushes, and see, come around May. If it hasn't flowered, okay, it's probably not going to flower and it's safe. Or wait until after they flower and prune those. Azaleas and rhododendrons are also, they set their flower buds in the late summer and fall, and you can see the swollen inflorescent buds on those, and avoid cutting those at all costs, because again, you're going to be cutting off your inflorescence for next year if you do too much pruning at this time of the year. So some other ones to think about. If you want to do any major pruning to anything, don't do it now either. I see people who shear their hedges to within 2 inches of death at this time of the year, and they'll expect them to sprout out, but they're going to sit there all winter long. If you wait until February or early March, do your major pruning then, you don't have to look at that ugliness for 3 months or even 4 months. You only have to look at it for a month or so until they start to reflush. So hold off on those things, those major prunings of our trees and shrubs for the most part. But anything evergreen, really wait until it gets cold before you do any major pruning. And also, don't throw away everything you're going to use. Wait for it, find another use for it. And going back to some of the herbaceous things, one of my favorite ones to use are some ginger lilies. Ginger lilies, the inflorescence, this is a favorite for our wreath workshops. You cut them off after they get frozen and you strip them down and let them dry is the key thing for a week or two. And you have a pine cone looking structure, which is a lot easier to work with to put into an arrangement or in a wreath than to actually wire in a short pine cone that has no stem. These also, the gingers, once they get, if you're a little bit more patient with those too, they get frozen, they size at the ground, you just have to pick them up. You don't even have to cut them if you wait. You can get away with a little bit less work if you do wait a little bit longer. So just another quick tip. I've moved out here into the trials, and I'm looking at a couple of some plants that we have here to see what did well this summer and take note of that. And that's something you can do in your own garden. In front of me, you might say, this looks terrible. It's been frozen with our first freeze last night. This is spectacular last week. This is a Biden here. This was Campfire Marshmallows. This is a white flowered Biden. It doesn't seem to be as hardy as its next door neighbor, Campfire Red Ember, but it was an excellent bloomer, and it's one I just wanted to take note of. And you can write these things down from year to year, and you can think, I might want to get that plant again. Or look at your neighbor's house. If you failed at your own, look at your neighbors and see what did well in their yard, because they probably have similar conditions if you think about it. If you're from the same development, your soils are probably similar. But anyways, so take note of what's around you, what has done well, what hasn't done well. And like I said, not everything does the same in your own garden as it does here. Just take note what does well for you, and you might be able to reuse that again next year. As you're cleaning out your garden, you may notice some things that you might want to save or collect in this case. Here's some of my annual cleomes. They look pretty sad at this time of the year, so I'm going to get rid of those. But right next door is this really cool plant. This was one of our Thailand giant elephant ears that we had here in the garden. This was this was from seed that I collected last fall. And it's a pretty good perennial for us, but if you want more of them, which is actually not that difficult to do, now is a perfect time to collect fruit from them. And this flowered, and I have some really cool fruit, or infructescens here. And let's see if I have anything in here. I think we should. This is a slimy mess, but it is perfect. So this infructescens is just full of fruit. So each of these, there's literally hundreds of them, have, say, 15 to 30 or more seeds that are just bitty, teeny tiny in there. If I collect this now and I dry this off, which is the easiest way I have found, I see people, other places, they put it in a blender and sift it all out and it's gooey. I don't like doing that. I just let it dry off for a month or so, and come January, I sow the seed, and I will get something that gets 4 to 6 feet, even 8 feet tall some years, from a January sowing of seed from these Thailand giant seeds. So this is a fun one, but you can collect seeds of other things. You might have some cosmos or gaillardias in your yard. You can always collect those. I did that as a child, and we would save them and plant them in the spring. Or marigolds, great for that. It's wonderful for kids to do that with. So as you're cleaning up, just don't throw everything away. Come along and see what you might have that you might want to save. So you might have a few trees in your yard, and we have that here at the Arboretum, and you might have a few extra leaves. So sometimes you have just a few that you can push back into the beds and use that and just save that organic matter. Don't ship it off to the compost site. Don't put them on the street if you don't have to. If you have some place, whether an adjacent property in the woods where you can compost your leaves, or even just a small compost pile, you can save those and not ship them away. There's multiple reasons to actually keep some of these leaves here. You'll often have a lot of beneficial insects insects, as well as maybe not some great ones, but the predominantly beneficial insects and butterflies and moths actually overwinter in our leaf litter. So by keeping those leaves on your property, you're not shipping them away where they get damaged. They're there. It's a natural habitat, as well as those leaves then do break down, there's microbes and stuff in there, which are great. They break down the leaves and feed the soil. You're going to have that organic matter then that they have created to feed your plants. You don't have to fertilize as much, for one thing. And it also helps to conserve moisture. And actually, our winters here are fairly dry. Our November and December are some of our driest months. So it doesn't actually hurt to be having a few of extra leaves lying around to help conserve some of that moisture. But if you do have too many leaves in one spot, you can rake them up and use them elsewhere, which I've already collected a handful here that I want to use in an adjacent bed where I really don't have any deciduous trees dropping leaves on there. So you can use them for mulch, and we use organic or leaf mulch throughout our garden here at the Arboretum, and you can create it on a much smaller scale by collecting those spare leaves and relocating them instead of shipping them down to the compost site, wherever it may be. It uses gas, it uses lots of energy to do that, as well as disrupting a lot of those natural things that are going on in your landscape from the microbes breaking things down, as well as it's acting as a home for insects as well, which also, the birds will enjoy the leaves there too. If you have towhees in your neighborhood, which we have here in the garden, they will come along, dig in the leaves, they will find their dinner in there. So you're providing food as well for our wildlife. So multiple reasons to keep those leaves and ways of using them. And I forgot to do the artsy part. Yet another way, and was mentioned, was we could be a little bit artistic. I don't do it, but our volunteers in the past have actually, underneath a ginkgo in the Asian Valley, they have raked circles of the spectacular fall foliage. It's ephemeral, literally days, but if you want to have fun with your kids, it could be a quick project to do with them, aside from jumping in the leaves. If you don't have enough, you can do it with these, but make an art project out of it with them. Have them go out in the garden and help spread those leaves out and make shapes. Have fun with your leaves. Don't just throw them away. So volume can be also an issue sometimes with leaves too. As you can see, I have just a small bucket here in front of me. But when you literally have mountains of them, if they're out on your yard, instead of raking them, you can also mulch them in with the lawnmower. Run over at a fairly high level, and it'll chop them up into smaller bits. It also helps to let them settle into the landscape a little bit more better, so they don't blow around quite so much. And they do also break down a little bit more quickly, which may or may not be a good thing depending on what you want to do. So if you want them to last a bit longer, you don't have to chop them up so much. But if you want them to stay in place, it's also beneficial. So you may ask, I have a pine tree in my yard. What do I do with all those pine needles? You can do basically the same thing, though there is a caveat. The pine needles don't always break down quite so quickly as the deciduous or broad-leafed plant material or leaves that we have falling at this time of the year. They tend to sit there and they can pile up. Literally, I have parts in the garden where if I don't remove some of them, I end up with 6 or 8 inches of it. And it can also, it'll form almost like a roof-like structure, and it will impede water from getting down in there ultimately when you do get so much. Though in lower volumes, it's not so bad, and it is a great mulch to use. It looks nice. It does typically stay fairly well in place without too much, but don't overdo it, is what I have to say with pine straw. So we have some actually not terribly far from here, and I do thin them periodically. They also like to they pile up along the pathway to the point that I have to remove them. If you don't have pines in your yard, you can bring it in and you can use it, and it probably won't pile up exponentially like it does for us. But use what you have, I guess, is what I should say. But you may have to edit a little. And again, it's the same way with the leaves. You can literally get 3 feet of them, but they tend to break down at a much more expedited pace. So fairly easily used in your landscape. I'm here in another part of the garden, and I'm actually going to put some of the things I talked about this morning or today in practice. Here in front of me, I have some cannas. They are so easy to cut back, especially if you have a handsaw. They just cut like butter. And these really don't offer homes to a lot of our beneficial insects because they don't have hollow stems. Some plants that have hollow stems are great, like I said earlier, to leave them up for homes, but you may have to do some other things at the same time while you're out here, and so you might not be able to keep some of them. These are some phlox I have, which they multiply really well. This is phlox paniculata John Fanick. It's one of my favorites, but phlox actually do they start from root cuttings really well, and they come up where I remove them from. But so we're going to do a little bit of dividing here. A clump that really looks nice, to tell you the truth, but I'm going to do a real quick cut back here, and I'm going to get rid of some of their neighbors, my daylilies here, Darrow actually. We're going to get them out of the way, and we're going to dig down in here and dig up a few of my phlox and show you how you might divide some of them. Getting the worst of the debris out of the way. There are a couple weeds hiding in here too, some grass in here. And that's the other thing you can do before you do this. You're gonna find some of the things that don't belong. So anyways, I've cut back my phlox here a little bit. And so I'm now gonna get in here with a spade fork and divide this. So I'm gonna divide my phlox John Fanick here, at least a small portion of it. I like a spade fork. It doesn't cut a lot of the roots. It just sifts them out of our really organic soil that we have here at the Arboretum. And here's a really nice clump. There's another one here. Let's see if I can get it out. And also by using this, being that this grows from root cuttings, I'm not chopping the roots up and making more than where I just took them from and don't need them. So let's see what else I can get here. But anyways, I've gotten out a few clumps of unneeded phlox, but if I want to reset them, I can get in here and I can pull these apart. You can pot them up and give them to friends, or you can replant them wherever. And phlox are really easy at this time of the year to do this, actually in the spring as well. Phlox are really easy to divide, and you don't need a big piece. You just need a root, actually. I could take a small piece like this and you can have a real nice plant by the end of next summer, and it'll flower for you actually next summer. These phlox paniculata in particular will do this. And you can just pull apart a clump. This one has not ever gotten terribly congested, but it does reproduce. And here I was saying about root cutting. This is one from a root cutting, and it's already putting up. That will actually grow into a new plant. So it doesn't take much. This is a great plant in general because wonderful butterfly plant, and you can't have too many of them. They're also excellent cut flowers. I use phlox paniculata a lot back home where I had as a cut flower in the summer. If you keep on cutting it, it will make more flower buds below where you cut it pretty often. You get a secondary flowering. So, and you can also control the height that way too. And this one gets about a 3 to 4 footer. Some of the newer phlox are not that large, but this one is just an easy one to do. And you can use this same idea to reproduce a lot of our hardy perennials at this time of the year. And you can just take out what you don't want and just put back in a handful of what you might want. Let's put this one back in here. So the depth varies depending on what you're planting. In this case, these, you just set them back in. If you're doing a division, you've had an example of what you had before. Yeah. So you know pretty much what you need to do. So you just pretty much put it back into the level it was before. I recently saw someone asking about a peony. In our climate, they're fairly shallow. It may depend on your climate where you're at, but you make sure the roots are in the ground and the shoots are up is the key thing. You probably can't do it wrong with a phlox. Super easy to reproduce at this time of the year. And you can expand, subtract, multiply, divide your perennials at this time of the year fairly easily. So after you've done your cleanup, the other thing you might do is, you may have taken note, which I had a hole here. I need to put something in here. I was missing something. And this is a great time of year to plant a lot of our hardy perennials as well. Like we just did some divisions on the phlox. You may want to add some other things that you've been able to get on, clearance at the nursery this fall. So I had a few plants here. I have some asphodeline lutea, which is a little bit different. We had these in our nursery, and Sophia's been wanting me to get them out of there, I think. But it has really cool evergreen foliage. So I'm going to put a few of those in this little area here, and I love that blue foliage on those and just the texture of the foliage. And then I have some salvias here. These are some Salvia Moulin Rouge, which is, I believe, a Salvia numerosa pratensis hybrid, if I remember right. It's a pink flowered one. They're a little bit shorter. They're about 2 feet tall when they come into flower. So I'm hoping they will fill in some of these voids I have in this area. But if I get them in the ground now, they'll be settled in real well, and they should flower for me real well come spring. So it's just really simple. Again, our soil here at the Arboretum is really good. You may need to amend yours a little. I don't need to amend it. My soil is actually too rich, I have to say. But I'm gonna just dig some simple holes here, and you will see my soil just, it's so compacted and in here. So I'm just gonna work up an area, the area I wanna work in and plant. You can do this a couple different ways, but if you're doing a large planting, work up the entire bed if you can. If you're doing some small, just tucking things in, work up a nice sized hole and make it, a $10 hole for a $4 or $5 plant in the fall. You got it on clearance, or maybe a $15 or $20 hole. So, and with perennials in general, they're fairly resilient, but you may want to, if you want to do any soil amending, you can amend the soil at this time. So again, I don't need to amend this. I need to actually remove some organic matter from it possibly, but anyways. So I have these asphodelines here, and I'm gonna just get in here. I like to work with my hands. You may work with gloves or a trowel. So yeah, this root ball is actually quite nice. I'm gonna loosen it up. Has these nice fleshy roots. These are distantly related to daylilies actually, so they kind of look reminiscent of a daylily. So anyways, I have 3 of these, and these don't get that wide, only a foot or so wide, so I can keep them fairly close and have a nice display. So I'm just gonna get in here. You can do it, like I said, with your hand or trowel. Spread make a nice hole. Spread out the roots. And you don't want to go too deep with these. This is a Mediterranean plant. But our soil's nice and moist right now. We had some rain recently, and I will come back here and water these later, but firm the soil around the roots. And these are going to get established here. We're supposed to have above normal weather the next couple of weeks, it looks like, and then it goes back to normal, it sounds like, so, or cool. So that should get them a little bit of time to become established. So you may ask, why is now a good time to plant? We're not going to have warm temperatures, but the roots are going to grow. And that is partly due to the fact that our soil temperatures are fairly stable. And they're quite warm yet, actually, here. So the plants are able to root in. The other great thing about planting in the fall is we have despite this being one of the drier times of the year for us here in the southeast, the soil moisture tends to be fairly stable as well. And so you can water things in, there's not a lot of transpiration going on in the top growth of the plant, and it's all happened down in the ground. And if you get that mulch on there, the plants are going to become well established and through the winter and early spring before we have the heat of summer next year. So this kind of buys you some time getting things established and are a little bit more resilient once they're established before our summer heat. You can do the same thing with trees and shrubs at this time of the year. We are actively planting throughout the garden, but this is just a great time to throw in a few extra finds from your local nursery too. So, okay. Okay, I've gotten those. So what I'll do later on, I'll water these in, and then I'll come back and use some of those leaves I collected earlier to mulch in this area. I finished up this area of the garden here using some of the ideas that I talked about earlier with, cutting things back, planting a few things, and reusing some of the leaves that I collected in other parts of the garden. I think it turned out pretty well. The leaves actually make this area look so much more unified, and it also hides my weeds and will prevent some regrowth on them, hopefully. In cleaning up, what I did do is I found some of the things that will be much more important later on in the season. I have some iris or Dutch iris right here, which are already throwing up their new foliage for next year and will give us blossoms in the and probably in March. So they're already up and about, but they look really nice now that I've cleared the salvia stalks away from them. And you can also see some late flowering on the salvias too. So anyways, I was able to spruce this area up and we got a good result. So I hope that I have given you some ideas by doing this and some of the other projects in the garden today of what you might do in your own landscapes around your house and spruce your place up for the fall.
Awesome. That was a lot of fun.
Was it?
It was. I had fun, and I'm sure Alexander had fun. And I'm sure we learned a lot from that little foray into autumn garden cleanup. So
hopefully they did, and hopefully I didn't confuse anybody.
No kidding. Well, I see you have a prop here for us. What have you got here?
So I quickly, and I think you showed
did,
that part, showed some hedychium.
Yes.
I had my volunteers out yesterday morning and prepping for our wreath workshop here in the next, in early December,
yes,
and getting my hedychium a little bit on the dry side. So these will be my replacements for pine cones. They're a whole lot friendlier to work with than pine cones. So, and they have a stem anyway. So these are our ginger lilies, our hedychium. So we have literally hundreds of these. So if you're going to be at our wreath workshop in a few weeks, you'll get to have some of those.
No kidding. Yeah, they are fun. Neat little thing there. Okay, so we are here to do questions for sure. So if y'all have any questions, you're welcome to drop them here in the chat. We've had one so far. Mary wants to know, do you cut back iris leaves now, or do you just leave them go?
It depends how bad they look.
No kidding.
And what type, like bearded iris, they may be starting to reflush already, because they go late summer dormant typically, and then when it cools off, they'll often start to reflush, and you can pull off any of the old foliage if you haven't already done that. Some of the other iris species, Virginicus I have in the perennial border, it's starting to look a little brown tipped, but it's holding up fairly well. It just depends how fastidious you want to be. And you can wait and see later on. It may pull off gently later on if you let them go. Yeah. Or at this point, you'd have to cut them probably. So
sure. Would leaving them go offer any particular benefits to wildlife and that?
It could be some benefit to some of the wildlife, and maybe some wildlife you don't want. With the bearded iris in particular, we get iris borers. And so cleaning things up, you can find some of or get rid of any overwintering eggs, hopefully. And you might see some of the rhizomes that are damaged at the same time, and you can get rid of those before the infestation gets bad. A lot of the other irises, I don't have issues with that on. The native irises, the Louisiana types, the Japanese water iris and things like that. Those are fine. And I mean, it's your own judgment, and it's just how you think it needs to look. I'm okay with it. Sure. But it could easily be home to some good beneficials as well. Sure, yeah. You don't want to be overly, if you're too clean, you can run into as many issues as if you're not clean. No kidding. You take away the beneficials at the same time as you take away the pest as well. Sure. And I was talking with one of the professors who has a plot out here. He has dahlias, and he says, I sprayed them like 3 or 4 times this summer for this, and that. And I said, I've never even seen those on mine, and I don't do anything to them. I think he's probably wiped out the good stuff at the same time as the bad. Yeah, because they're only a matter of a couple hundred yards apart. Sure, so and you'd think we got a healthy colony of dahlias there. Yeah. You'd think we'd have the pests if we'd have them. So it's like you might, you have those overwintering, watering, but like if you do too much, you may be damaging the ecosystem itself. So.
For sure. Yeah. And that's actually something that I noticed a lot from this video was there wasn't too much to actually clean up.
No.
It's more of like thinking, when will I get to this to optimize the beauty, but then the benefits too.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm glad we did this because I know a lot of people are asking questions this time of year about what they can
There's
do.
some things that you might want to, like I said in the talk, if it has a disease, or if there was powdery mildew, you might want to get rid of the foliage on that. That is peonies. They're going down at this time of the year, and the old foliage may, as it ages, it becomes a little more susceptible to those pathogens. It's a secondary thing. It's not something that's going to kill the plant or anything, but it's just as we age, we become more susceptible to things ourselves. The plants are the same way, and their old leaves start to break down, and you get that. So you can maybe help alleviate some of it for the following year by removing it at this point, but it might not be the end of the world either. So.
Sure. Okay. Polly wants to know, and you mentioned this briefly in the video, when do you prune Japanese maples?
For me, I like to do it in the winter when I can see the structure of the plant.
Honestly.
You would not want to do too much late summer if you had to. I mean, you can take a branch here and there. You can find dead any time of the year and take that out with no problem.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do anything severe, like do a major thinning, I would wait until probably mid-January to mid-February. And then ours start to wake up again.
They sure do.
They will cry a little bit when you do cut them in the winter, but it's not the end of the world. It's not going to hurt them.
Yeah. And you raised a good point there. That's a time of year when they've lost their leaves and you can actually see the structure and can make more judicious decisions.
The spectacular one behind us here, this viridis, we'll get in there in the winter and we'll take out any dead twigs at that. Or if there's a larger branch that we have to take out just to keep the density and the shape that we want, you can easily do that then.
Sure. But now is not the time. At the earliest, you would wait till that thing goes dormant.
Yes.
But again, if you prune it immediately after it goes dormant, then you're just watching it all winter long, not really recovering it.
If you're doing anything major, like if you're pruning, doing a hedge and you want to do you don't want to shear it right now because, well, you're going to look at all those brown tips the entire winter. Okay. Especially on those evergreens, because they're not going to reflush until March. For sure. Or April, depending on what it is. So why look at it for 3 to 4 months?
Indeed. Honestly, the garden can be beautiful in winter with a bit of forethought and a bit of planning. Yeah. So absolutely. So Jared wants to know, are there any species of leaves that you would definitely remove because they might be hosts to known invasive insects or pathogens?
I hope you don't have Ailanthus, which I think is one of the things right now, just a little further north, and we might be getting them very soon, are the lanternflies. Yeah. That's one of the known host plants for the lanternflies, or Ailanthus altissima. Sure. But it's also a terrible plant to have in your landscape. It will sucker everywhere. Well,
the thing about it is it's super duper invasive, so chances are you've got one nearby anyway.
Yeah, hopefully not. They aren't too bad here in the Northeast. They have naturalized all over the place, I know from my experience growing up there. But right offhand, no, but not for insects. But you may, if you have a hickory or a walnut or pecan in your yard. They contain juglones. They're in the Juglandaceae, and some plants theoretically can have some issues with that. So it's phytotoxic to other things to inhibit their growth, but not everything has an issue. But you may want to remove some of those if you do have a large one of those in your yard.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. At least remove,
It's the plants fighting, not the insects fighting the plants or attacking the plants. So.
For sure. Okay, so Brenda wants to know, when is the best time to cut back gardenia? So that's a broadleaf evergreen shrub.
I would wait at this point. I wouldn't start pruning one on them right now. Also, you're going to be, at this time of the year, for the early flowers next year, the flowers that are going to be in April and May, when they do their main flowering, those buds are probably set. Okay. So if you cut them off, prune it right now, you're going to take that off. If it's something that, well, it's coming into your pathway, you don't have enough space to get by, okay, you can do that pruning, but you're going to look, again, at all those cuts through the winter. It's an evergreen. It's not going to do too much at this point. Yeah. So I would wait, personally, and if I would wait until after it flowers. I wouldn't even do it in
Honestly,
February or March when I would do a major pruning. If I was, say, doing it to a holly to take it back on a hedge or something. For a gardenia, I would, unless, I would wait till it flowers, and then right after it flowers is a perfect time to do it.
Absolutely.
And then you can also, it'll sometimes induce new flowering later on in the season.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. Okay, Connie says that she had 3 large hydrangeas that she cut down to the ground. Did she kill them?
When did she do it, and what type were they? And,
no kidding. Short answer is probably not.
Yeah,
but,
it just
we'll
depends.
See what winter brings.
I mean, if she did it earlier in the summer and they hadn't come back up yet, they're probably dead. If she just did it now, it's probably, it'll probably resprout from the base. Depending on what kind it is. If it's a macrophylla, you may not get any flowers next year. If you do, they're going to be very late in the season. If it's an arborescens, they're going to flower regardless. Paniculatas, also, they're going to typically flower regardless of what you do to them. So, as long as, like I said, you hadn't cut it back early in the season and it just hadn't resprouted, which would be a bad thing. If you just did it, the chances are to be fine.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty, Judy is wondering, so you talked about dealing with large volumes of leaf litter. You talked about mowing them over with a lawnmower. Judy is wondering if doing that would help reduce vole populations in your landscape.
That I do not know.
No kidding. It makes sense. Like if you're making the leaf litter less fluffy, less inviting to critters like that.
I don't have an issue with voles in the garden, thank goodness. But so I can't say whether that would help or not. All I can say is find yourself a nice snake or some owls that like to hunt at night. Our barred owls in the Raleigh area, I hear them hooting away where I live, and they are excellent vole hunters. So
absolutely. Okie dokie. So Jan would like to know if she should cut back her peonies and if peonies are indeed a plant that can be divided at this time of year.
It's an ideal time to cut them back as long as you don't have a tree peony. And in that case, you just cut off the dead wood on those. And the etos, which are crossed between herbaceous peonies and tree peonies, they may have some wood on them that'll stay above ground. If you cut it off, it's not the end of the world. There'll be buds below the ground level as well. But going back to the herbaceous peonies, you can hack them all off at this time. And again, those are something that sometimes gets powdery mildew late in the season. They have a really leathery leaf the rest of the season, but by this time they're looking sad. Just cut those back, throw those in the compost pile or ship them away with yard waste if you have that. And if you want to divide, yes, excellent time to divide peonies is right now. I would not wait till spring. They like a cool climate. We are on the edge for a lot of them anyways. So divide away and reset them, and then ignore them for years because they do not like to be reset. But if you have to do it, this is the time to do it.
Nice. Okay. Candace wants to know, do you continue to actively weed the gardens through the winter months, or do you just put the gardens to bed and leave it until spring?
I try to, because I have ample winter weeds here. We have dead nettles, which are like Lamium purpureum, and then Lamium amplexicale is the henbit. Those will all come up. There's cool season weeds like bittercrest, which will come up. You can have a salad with those.
Sure.
Chickweed also, it'll be actively growing all winter long. And those are just to name a few of them. I would get rid of them as fast as you can so that they don't set seed and keep on going, even though some of the lamiums do have pretty pink flowers in the late winter, spring.
Yeah.
But you may regret it next fall. They've been coming up here in the garden already, probably for since September, since we actually had a cool late summer this year and early fall. So they came up early for us, and so pull them as soon as you can get a hold of them, because they'll start out this big one week, and even though it is cool in our winters, they will bolt very quickly when we have a few warm days. And so keep ahead of them.
Yeah. We have this one weed in the garden that's absolutely awful, Aerometallicum.
Yeah, that one is a perennial. That's a little more fun to deal with.
Well, that one's summer dormant, so you don't see it for most of the year, but it's actually in leaf this time of year, so you can actually see it, and you can actually pull it out before it flowers. I
wouldn't say you can pull. You have to actually physically dig that one out.
Excavate it.
Yes.
Excavate it is the word.
And remove all adjacent soil.
Yeah, for sure.
We did plant those originally in the garden, and they've become a little over exuberant, and and they are starting to naturalize a little more than we like. So
Yeah, honestly.
I used to say they were a good companion plant to hostas because they fill the space when the hosta's not there. But
Don't they just?
but anyways, I'm not
little
saying
too
that so
well.
much now, but they're Mediterranean. So like you say, they become winter active when the Mediterranean, they have cool, moist winters. And much like our winters are here, but then they have hot, dry summers, which induce their natural cycle to be dormant in the hot summer versus active. So like their cousins, the elephant ears, which are very much active during the summer.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
But yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, dig them while you can. There's a few other weeds I have like that. I have a Nothoscordum in the garden, which is an onion relative. It's a worldwide weed, and it's in my perennial border, and I have volunteers weekly going through it in the some of the year because it kind of can hide my actual desirable smaller bulbs, and I don't want to plant any smaller bulbs until I try to eradicate that one. So I hope to have it eradicated by the time I retire in the next 15 or 20 years. Or nearly so.
Well, I'll hope for that to happen for you, Tim. Okay, Paul wants to know if you shred the leaves, does that help alleviate the effects of the hickory/walnut? Would it if it weren't shredded?
I don't think that would make any difference because the chemical is in that leaf. You're just going to pulverize it, and it's going to release it one way or the other.
Yeah.
Not all plants actually have an issue with that. But there are a handful that do.
Yeah.
But if you are having an issue with growing something underneath it, that would be the reason I would rake it away and actually dispose of it. I wouldn't compost your anything the Jugulandaceae into compost that you're going to spread anywhere in the garden. So yeah, ship that away. Because it's a chemical that won't break down.
Yeah.
It's going to stay there for a little while.
Honestly, if the leaves are shredded up and you put it'll probably be easier
it'll make
to
tea.
leach. Yeah.
It's going to be like tea. The smaller the piece, the more.
So it might make it more toxic
Initially,
in the short term, but then maybe easier to leach out. But honestly, it's probably just easier to just not deal with it at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Marilyn wants to know what's our secret. Why don't we have voles at the JCRA?
That I don't know. I mean, I used to have coyotes. I haven't seen them recently.
Sure.
And fox. We have black rat snakes. We have.
Yeah, we do.
I have had an owl at times. I saw it met its demise I think it was last year along the road out the street. And then we have hawks. We have good predators.
Yeah.
We also have used a lot of permatil in the garden, which is supposedly it's the same thing as vole block.
Sure.
That may help, may not.
No kidding.
We don't have the perfect habitat because they're going to be like in the actual forest. Like the oak forest is where you're going to find a lot of them.
No kidding.
And so, anyways.
Well, shoot, and we don't have deer either.
I don't have deer.
We're not abutted up next to a forest.
I have rabbits instead.
Yeah, honestly.
And squirrels, which are almost as bad as the voles, I think, at times for eating my bulbs.
Sure, honestly.
Instead, they go from the top instead of the bottom, but they'll still take that tulip and crocus out. I've planted thousands of those over the decades.
Honestly,
I have fewer than,
no kidding.
Yeah,
especially if you go
crocus.
to somewhere like Longwood Gardens and see their flowering lawn with their thousands, tens of thousands, crores of crocus, and you're just like, oh, I want that.
And the other thing that we don't have in the garden are moles per se, and the voles will often share they aren't so much the burrowers, the moles are the burrowers. They'll often get in there and use their holes. So I do have things that the moles would eat too. I have grubs and stuff in the lawn, but because the moles are predatory, the voles are not.
Yes.
They're herbivores, so.
Yeah. Okay, Kristen says the interior on her emerald arborvitaes are turning brown.
Okay.
Do I leave the brown areas alone until the spring, or do I remove them now?
It's up to you. It's fall. Just conifers, despite the fact that I'm being called evergreens, do lose their needles and scales, in this case on an arborvitae.
Thank you for saying that,
The insides get shaded out, so the plants compartmentalize and say, I'm wasting trying to keep these needles alive, and so it decides and drops them, and this is a good time of the year to do that. You can shake them out if you want, use a leaf blower, get in there, that'll get rid of a lot of it, and then it'll act as a natural mulch if you get it out of there. And you will find some dead twigs and stuff in there too. Again, that plant is compartmentalizing and saying, again, these branchlets are not doing anything. I don't need them. So as long as the plant's healthy, yeah, just get in there and shake it out.
Yeah, awesome. And there was one final question from Mary. What about pruning Edgeworthias? That'll fall into the same category as all of the other plants.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch your Edgeworthias right now unless you're propagating them for a reason. And at this point, they'll probably have look like wasp nest hanging on them. And those aren't wasp nests.
No.
Those are the buds that will come out in January and February and early March.
Yeah.
And you want those. So I wouldn't mess with it.
Yeah.
Wait, like I said, unless it's out, you put it too close to the sidewalk and you're getting hit in the face every time, I wouldn't touch it.
Which isn't a terrible thing with Edgeworthia when it's in bloom. Yeah, exactly.
Look up at it if it's a really big one.
It's a sweet and beautiful plant for sure. So, okay. Great. Well, that is all the questions that we had for today. So
I'm glad I was able to answer some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for going around the garden with us, Tim, and alleviating some of our anxieties about garden cleanup in the fall.
I hope I did worry some people less.
Beautiful. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on the Midweek program today. We will not be back next week because it's Thanksgiving, but we will be back the following week. Evan will be doing cold hardy palms, so that should be really interesting. We hope we will see you all then. Y'all take care.